All right, I just want to say welcome everyone to RVA Rapid Transit's Transit Talk. My name is Faith Walker. I'm the executive director for RVA Rapid Transit. RVA Rapid Transit is a nonprofit here in the Richmond region. We're dedicated to frequent and far-reaching public transportation. We do that in three ways, or actually four. I would say four. We want to see more buses go more places, okay? We also want people to have dignified places to wait on the bus. Um, and thirdly, we definitely want to make sure that bus riders have a voice when transit planning and decisions happen that really affect them most. And then last but not least, zero fare. We have really gotten behind the support of zero fare because this is what riders say they want and need. And so today, this is our monthly webinar called Transit Talk. We want to give the general public news involving transportation, any transportation plans, any strategies that's going on. We want to be the leading source when it comes to public transportation in the region, and we want you to come to us for that. But before we get started, I want to make sure we have some housekeeping notes. This is a recorded call. We post this up on our YouTube page at the end of this, and we would ask that everyone keep themselves on mute. We would love for you to ask questions, make comments in our chat, and so we welcome you to do that. But if you have a question so that we make sure your question is answered, make sure you do #Q so that we know it's a question. And then, so to get started, I want to just go over some news. So, in the news, what's up with the bus? I just want to say, let's give a shout out to all the advocates, all the community partners who help us craft HB 285. If you're in the chat right now, I want you to just do high five, hands up, say congrats, good job to everyone who helped support this legislation go through. One of the things that our mission is to make sure that bus riders have dignified places to wait when it comes to shelters and benches throughout the region. When I started this work about 3 years ago, we looked at how many bus stops are actually in the region as we speak. At that time, GRTC 1,600 bus stops only had about 83 shelters. So that was about 5% of the bus stops that were in our region only had shelters. And that's not a lot. Can you imagine while you're on your commute to work that only 5% of the time when you're at a bus or you're stopping at a stoplight, you're protected from the sun, you're protected from rain, you're protected from the elements. And this is what bus riders were feeling throughout the region. And so we dedicated a lot of man hours on figuring out what was the holdback, because the funding was there, the money was there. GRTC and local leaders wanted these shelters to be installed, but there was a process slowing that down through general services. And so we streamlined that process. We partnered with Jennifer DeBrawl at the DRPT and Alan Saunders, who really just mapped out the strenuous process of installing these shelters and benches. I mean, we were floored to see like the ridiculousness of it. A lot of times shelters were even considered to be a house and home. And then the same shelter that was approved one year, it almost took 30 months to approve the next shelter when it was the same exact design. And so this was holding up so much shelters from being installed, not just within our region, but all over the state. Just to, as a recap, that bill, let's see, Delegate McQuinn sponsored the bill. It went through the House and sailed through unanimously. These folks that you see right here and other community partners during the General Assembly session, they went to delegates all over the state of Virginia, visit their offices and explain why this bill is so important. And so that passed unanimously. Then the Civic subcommittee, there was a little setback and we didn't lose hope. The bill was almost at risk of being just completely shut down. And so a 1-year clause sunset was placed on there just to get the bill through. And there was some language that needed to be resolved. And so that 1-year sunset clause got pushed through. The governor and other administrators, we advocated that an amendment be made And then there was a 3-year amendment placed on that. And then again, you guys showed up. You reached your local leaders. You called senators. You called delegates to also support the governor's amendment. And now HB 285, it does have that 3-year sunset. So we can figure that out another day. But I just want to say congrats and thank you for the hard work. In other news, I want to just say that we have some new roles and some new team members. I wanted to congratulate Stephanie Power, put some congratulations to her in the chat, y'all. She is our new programs and community engagement manager. Stephanie's dedication and leadership as a previous transit ambassador have been invaluable, and we're confident that she'll excel in her new position and help us strengthen our ties to the community. So congratulations, Stephanie. And then Courtney Farrar, she's our new transit ambassador. Courtney, if you don't know who she is, she gave a phenomenal bus rider experience story at the most recent transportation forum hosted by our guest, Plan RVA. And she is totally car dependent, has been car dependent for the last 3 years. And so I know that her passion about public transportation and community engagement will just definitely be a big impact to us. And then I have May Ogens. She is our digital advocacy coordinator. She is going to be leveraging technology to amplify our advocacy efforts. And so congrats to May and welcome. And then last but not least, Brittany Thomas King. She's our research fellow. And so her expertise will drive forward our commitment to evidence-based transit solutions. So welcome. If you see these folks, reach out to them. I put their emails on here. Just send them a congratulations and welcome. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is turn it over to our new community engagement and programs manager, Stephanie, who's going to lead the charge in doing our writer's voice portion. Stephanie, you can take it away.
Thank you, Faith. And thank you everyone for the congratulations. Yes, let's go team. I'm just want to say I'm super excited about our new team. Already we are gelling and we are getting the work done and ready for the new state of transit report and all of this. So welcome to the Rider's Voice portion of our transit talk. I've got 2 comments for you today. The first one is Christopher on the reliability of county buses. So buses going from the city into Henrico County. If we can go back to that slide, that'd be great. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Christopher Cox and my bus route. Christopher Cox and my bus route is 7. And the number 7A and the 7B are the ones I take the most because I live in the county. And the problem I've been having with the bus is sometimes the bus don't come down my way. Sometimes it doesn't read on my when you do the tracking. Sometimes it doesn't read, and I'm thinking the bus don't come, and so I walk off to another bus stop, and I look behind me, and the bus is coming. So I had to run to the bus. You know what I mean? But just as far as the 7, it's only the 7s I had a problem with. I catch the 12s and the 14s, and I never had that problem.
So I want to just thank Christopher for that. And I wanted to highlight Christopher's comment, especially because GRTC is getting ready in 2024, so this year, to launch another microtransit link area, and it will actually cover those 7 routes, the 7 routes, the 4s and the 12s. So it's going to be right around the Sandston and the Elko area. And I just spoke with actually Henry from GRTC earlier today to just get his word on it. They are hoping it's going to be a 7-day-a-week service. They're not totally sure on that yet, but that is the goal. And yeah, so it will really service that area that Christopher has sometimes those issues with reliability. So that is very exciting. We'll look forward to that. Now we've got Norris.
What your story is?
Okay, my name is Norris Ripley, and my bus route numbers are 2A, 2B, 2C that goes to the northbound, And as far as my experience, it's very helpful. It's very convenient for me, being that I don't have a car, so it gets me where I have to go. The experience is really you can almost look at it as like a blessing because um the world doesn't owe us anything, and we're kind of getting this for a service fee, so free, so it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, and just wanted to highlight again that we're advocating for free fare to be made permanent. And I'm gonna drop a link in the chat right now to GRTC's website just so we can see I forget that it's called TAP. And it's what GRTC is doing right now to try to make sure that they can secure funding moving forward so that so we make zero fare permanent. So I'll drop that link in the chat. And yeah, we're going to keep on advocating for that. So that's the rider's voice for today. I'll give it back to you, Faith.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. So
Mhm.
I'm going to transition to the highlight and why you all are here. I want to invite on our regional planners, right? So if you don't know, RVA Rapid Transit, we have something called our State of Transit report. And we do this report each year. We want to highlight the progress that our region has made when it comes to transportation. In 2017, Plan RVA and the 9 jurisdictions under Plan RVA all agreed upon that by 2040, that there will be 13 corridors that would offer 10 to 15 minute bus service. Now, can you imagine that there will be 13 pulse buses running throughout our region? Right now, we just have one. And so our organization really got behind this plan. And I'm so excited that they're working on the 2050 vision plan. And so today I have Holly Gordon and Myles Busching, who is going to be presenting the 2050 vision plan. And so I'm going to invite them on right now to take it away.
Thanks, Faith. Do you want to launch the poll while Myles is bringing up his presentation?
Sure.
So we have a poll for you just to get a feel for which of the things that we're going to talk about today are the most exciting in your minds.
Is it popping up? Can you see the poll?
No.
Okay, let's try again.
There it is.
All right.
So tell us a little bit about which of these 3 things you're most interested in, and we're going to talk about them. And Myles is going to take it away, but tell us your thoughts. And if for some reason the poll is not visible to you, you could also put it in the chat if that's not available to you, but it should be a little pop-up. And while you're doing that, I want to give a thanks to the volunteers who work with us, because it's National Volunteer Week this week. And so I come from a volunteer management background, and I'm very excited that we get to work with folks like RVA Rapid Transit. And Faith is actually a volunteer with us at Plan RVA. She's on our Community Transportation Advisory Committee. And so she's even volunteering outside of her work to help us work on regional cooperation. So I love that we get to do these kinds of things together. So thanks to all our volunteers. All right, we have 10 more seconds to answer the poll, and then you can close it and then show us the results. 7, 6, 5. Oh, there they are. Hey. Okay, BRT expansion seems like it's the winner. 57% of you most interested in BRT expansion, followed by regional cooperation in general, and then last mile sidewalks. All right. Myles, do you want to take it away?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Myles Busching. I am the Director of Transportation at Plan RVA. So what we wanted to do today was give you just a little bit of overview about Plan RVA, what it is that we do in transportation and transit in particular, and then talk about our upcoming plan for 2050 and how you can be involved and help us to plan for the future. So what is Plan RVA? We are what's known as the Regional Planning District Commission. Basically what that means, it's where the 9 localities of Central Virginia come together to talk about the big issues that are bigger than just one jurisdiction. So this is where Chesterfield, Richmond, Henrico can all sit down in the same place and coordinate. And so we focus on a lot of different areas. Our work touches environment and resiliency, so we have programs in that space, community development and public engagement. We have work in emergency management, and then transportation, which is the biggest part of our program right now. And it's where we do a lot of our work. So Faith was talking about this. This is the 2040 vision for public transportation in the region. All of those red and dark orange lines were the 10 to 15 minute frequent service network. So this is sort of the baseline, and this is what all of our work revolves around when it relates to public transportation. We're also planning for bikes and pedestrians, for cars, for freight. So this is a portion of what we plan for, but this is sort of the guiding vision on everything that we do. How does it all relate, and what is it that we're doing? So the public transportation, and I am trying to hide the poll still. There we go. So public transportation fits into this planning cycle. This is basically everything that we do as planners is oriented around this process, and it's all a giant circle because everything that we do then informs what we do next. So the first part of it is identifying all the issues and solutions around the region. We've done that through the vision plan, obviously laying out the vision of what sort of service do we need in our region. We also have a near-term implementation strategy. So that lays out over a 5 to 10 year window, which of those corridors should we be focusing on? So I'm sure you're all familiar with the efforts right now toward North-South BRT. That all came out of our near-term implementation. We studied all the corridors, and those 2 corridors going out Midlothian Turnpike and then up Chamberlain were identified as the priorities in that plan for the next 5 years. So that's sort of how we've moved forward into North-South. We also have a park and ride strategy, which looks at opportunities for people to get onto the bus coming from the farther reaches of the region. And then we obviously help coordinate with GRTC on any of their planning efforts and studies. The important part, and what we're going to talk a lot about today, is the long-range transportation plan. So this is a plan that we're required to update every 5 years, and this is where we really prioritize those solutions. So this is basically, we look at the next 25 years, so the next one will be out to 2050, and we look at how much money do we think will be available to invest in transportation in the Richmond region. And then we look at all of the different issues and solutions that we've studied, public transportation, highway needs, bicycle and pedestrian needs, and prioritize which of those projects should we be spending money on to make sure that we're achieving the best result for the region as a whole. So a lot of that is helping us to figure out which of those bus rapid transit corridors or frequent transit networks should we prioritize now, as opposed to which one should come in another 10 years. You know, it's kind of the pacing and the timing to still achieve the vision, but making sure we are meeting all of the needs. The next thing that we do at Plan RVA is we're very involved in actually funding a lot of these solutions. So we support what's known as the region's Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a federally required body that actually directs all the federal dollars in the region. So we actually have a small portion of that we can put directly on projects. We also support the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, which is a regional authority for transportation funding, which has provided funding for some of the projects like North-South, the Western Pulse expansion, and the Downtown Transfer Center. And then we also, kind of below the line, we seek funding for these projects. So we go out and search for grants to try and implement them. So we work with GRTC and with the localities to try and get money through the state, through the federal government, to be able to advance some of these priority projects. We maintain a transportation improvement program that's not particularly important, but basically that lays out the near term for the next 4 years, what we're investing in. And then the only thing we really don't do is implement the projects. That's GRTC space. So we don't actually go out and build any of the shelters or acquire new buses, but we help support that. And then finally, we do a lot of evaluating. So a lot of what we do is very similar to the state of transit. We're looking at how's ridership changing? How many people live within access to the transit network? How many people's homes or jobs are within access of the transit network? Do we have more dedicated bus lanes than we had last year? To trying to measure our progress toward that vision. And this is all a big circle. It goes constantly. We're evaluating how we're doing new studies, and then trying to prioritize for the next 5 years of what we're working on. So what are some of the big projects that we're working on right now? One of them that we're about to kick off is a rural public transportation study. So this is actually an interesting project. We're looking at the areas outside of the GRTC service area and looking at opportunities and models to provide a level of public transportation service, which could then still be integrated with the core GRTC network. So that would include Charles City, New Kent, Hanover, Powhatan, and Goochland. So it's a broader look, but the idea is just because you leave the dense urban core doesn't mean that's the only area that you should be able to get to without a car. So we're trying to find solutions for everyone across the entire region. Another big project that we have prioritized for this upcoming year is our last mile sidewalk prioritization effort. So Faith mentioned this a little bit earlier, but GRTC has been undertaking the Essential Transit Infrastructure Program, which is basically making sure that stops have shelters, trash cans, benches, so that it's somewhere that's actually decent to stay and wait for the bus. What we're trying to do is complement that effort and look at how do you get to those stops. So a stop's only so helpful if you can't actually get there safely. So we're looking for sidewalks and crosswalks and where they're missing in the watershed of the bus stops to try and prioritize those and look for investments in those last mile connections to the bus. And then the last piece of what we're getting ready to work on right now is the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. So I've mentioned this a little bit, but essentially what that plan is it lays out our region's policies and priorities for the next 25 years, and then our investments across all modes of transportation. So this is really the opportunity for all of our elected officials and all of the public to be involved to help shape the vision for the region. If we want to invest more in public transportation to achieve that 2040 vision of the 13 corridors with frequent transit, we need to invest in that. So this is where those trade-offs come in. This is where the discussions can happen for the region to really prioritize what's most important, and so that the infrastructure that we're investing in really reflects our views and our values as a region. So how do we do this planning for 2050? The first thing that we do is look at the regional network across all 9 localities and figure out what issues there are. So part of this is really talking to people and figuring out what isn't working. Where are you struggling to get where you need to go on a day-to-day basis? The other part of that is a lot of data and analysis. We can look at where do we see regular congestion on the roads, or where can we identify gaps in our bike network or sidewalk network. So it's pulling all of those pieces together to get a good inventory of all of the issues that are in the network today. The second part of this process is looking at the region and identifying a vision. So we have a vision that's been identified, but making sure that that vision still matches our priorities and the values for our region, and then turning that into goals and actual objectives, something we can measure to make sure we're making progress in the right areas. The third step in the process is developing what we've called a universe of projects. So this is really where we look at all those issues, look at all the possible solutions, and put them all into one place and help to figure out which of those solutions are actually going to address the issues that we're seeing. So if we're seeing congestion on a road, it could be that they build more lanes. It could also be that we look at expanding our BRT corridors through there to provide an alternative to driving to alleviate the congestion. So there's multiple ways to solve the problems, and we try and look at all of them to make sure that we're planning for that multimodal future for the region. The fourth piece of our process is scoring, ranking, and prioritizing. So what we do is we take all of those projects that we've looked at, And we actually look at specific measures, going back to the goals and objectives that we came up with, and making sure that the projects are actually advancing what we want to advance. So some of the things that we look at are opportunities to improve safety by reducing crashes, and in particular, fatalities and serious injuries on the roadways. We look at the projects to see if they're providing more access to jobs or to destinations that people would want to go to. So things like libraries, schools, grocery stores. There's a whole bunch of metrics that we use. I think we have 15 in our last plan, but this is something that we'll be reviewing, coming up with new measures, making sure that they're reflecting our vision and our values. The next and sort of final step in developing the priorities for the next 25 years is coming up with what's called a cost possible plan. Essentially what this means is we have to project out all the revenues in transportation for the next 25 years and then figure out what can we actually afford. So what is the best return on our investments within that budget that we have? And so that helps us to lay out what's actually possible and what can we achieve. And that's really where the trade-offs happen, where we have to make those hard decisions about, are we going to invest more in transit? Are we going to invest more in highway projects? Are we going to build bike lanes here? Or are we just going to focus on sidewalks? So that's really the piece of where all this comes together. And we have all the data, we know all the needs, we know how the projects perform, and figuring out what the best projects to invest in are. And then the final part of our process is an evaluation and improvement. So at the end of all of this, we look at the plan and we assess how we did. Did we actually improve access to jobs and to destinations for everyone? Did we provide new service to any areas that didn't previously have service? How many people live now or will live in the next 25 years within walking distance of frequent transit service? I mean, those are the kinds of measures that we're able to assess at the end and say, how do we do with these investments and what could we do better next time as we work through this process? The reason I went through all these steps and highlighted them is each of these will have some opportunities for public engagement and public involvement. So we're going to be coming back here and we're going to be asking all of you to help us out. So we need to know what issues you're struggling with as you get around the region, but we also need to know what you think about how we rank the projects at the end of the day. We also need to know, is this the right set of investments? So all of this is going to have a lot of opportunity for you to participate through surveys, through public meetings. So we're going to be reaching out, and Holly will definitely be in contact to share these opportunities with you, and we'll all be participating and making sure that we can come and make ourselves available for those. Why does all of this matter? I think it's pretty clear that this is important, but the biggest thing is this is our roadmap for future investments. So this plan for 2050 actually lays out what as a region we are planning to invest money in. So this really shapes the direction of where our projects come from and what we're going to be spending the money on. It also gives us an opportunity to look regionally, so we can think a little bit bigger than just your street or just your neighborhood, but thinking about the region as a whole. How do you get from Short Pump to downtown? How do you get from, how do you get on a bike across jurisdiction lines? There's a lot of challenges that you have to think beyond just the boundaries of your locality or your neighborhood to solve. And so this gives us that opportunity. And then I think the most important part is this is a required process for federal funding. So if we want to access the transit dollars that are available through the federal government or the highway dollars through the federal government, we have to go through this planning process and make sure that we have looked regionally and coordinated. So this is really the key, because this makes all of it possible. We can unlock the funding that makes it doable. So how can you help? This is really the biggest three things that we've got. The first is to participate in our surveys and public events. As I mentioned, we're going to have a lot coming up. Hopefully soon we'll have a tool available online to start listening for issues. So we're working on getting that launched soon. But we're going to have a lot of events, and you're going to see them over the next 2 years. So this is really a planning process that won't be done until 2026. So we're going to be working on this over the next 2 years, and we're going to be coming back to you, asking for your input, helping to guide the decisions that are being made. The second thing is really connecting us with your community. So Faith has done this today, bringing us in here to share with you. But the idea is each of you have a community. You know people that we don't, and we don't know who we don't know. So if you have someone who you think would be interested in participating or who could help us to reach out to a broader community, please share with us. Please get in touch. We would love to meet them, and we would love to help you guys to plan for the future of the region. And then the last thing is really, there's going to be opportunities to volunteer for outreach or events where we are going to need more people. We only have about 30 people that work at Plan RVA in a region of over 1 million people, so we can't be everywhere at once. So if you are interested in volunteering and helping us out, we're always appreciative of those efforts, so please let us know, and we're happy to be involved. That was the really brief overview of everything that we're planning to do for the next few years. I am happy to take any questions now and really dive into any details, any questions anyone has on this.
All right, let's open it up to some questions. Myles and Holly, someone sent me a direct question. I'll start off. Let's see, this comes from Suzanne. She says, does the 2050 vision plan include carbon neutral components?
So thank you for that question. So we, at the state level, there is a mandate that says by 2045, we will be net zero as a Commonwealth. As far as how it turns into the planning process, we haven't figured that out. So to be frank, we have the tools to measure greenhouse gas emissions from our projects, obviously, but it's not something that we have explored. That's something we've just developed. So figuring out how exactly those work together into the plan is something that's going to come through this process. And I think a lot of public input and a push toward that would help to get us there.
I'm going to chime in, Myles, also with our federal EPA grant that we got from the Environmental Protection Agency is about climate pollution reduction. And so some of the activities that we're doing in service to climate pollution and greenhouse gas reduction are going to be in the area of transportation. We're going to be looking at other things too, but we're also kind of tackling that from another program area that we do, because we have quite a large environmental program. And so what's great about us sitting here in this regional position is that we get to care about all of those things and the ways that they interact.
All right, great question. Let's see if we have any more in the chat. Sorry, y'all. Do you see any more, Holly? My screen is
Yeah, there's a question from Michael that says, are these efforts aligned or coordinated with RVA Green 2050?
Great question.
Sure. So I think the answer to that is in part. So RVA Green really focuses on the city of Richmond at the core. So the city of Richmond's transportation planning, which is the Richmond Connects plan, is aligned with that. So the projects that are coming from the city of Richmond would be aligned with their planning for the future. And so a lot of what we do is work with the localities to make sure that the projects that we're advancing to solve the problems that we've identified as a region are consistent with what they want. Because at the end of the day, it's the local governments who are implementing these projects. But in terms of the region as a whole, we don't have a similar plan. That's part of what Holly was mentioning, the climate pollution reduction grant, which is developing a climate action plan for the entire Richmond metropolitan area, will help to lead some similar efforts at the regional scale. But that's not done yet. It's kind of on the same timeline. It'll be developing it as we're developing the vision for the transportation system.
Okay. Well, Stephanie says, thanks, Myles. Can you talk about your budget? How much are we talking per year? And can you talk about how do you guys decide what money gets invested in cars, highways, and how much is invested, I guess, in the study? Do you calculate how much it will cost to pursue these goals?
Yes. So backing up a little bit, this plan accounts for every funding source in transportation. So it looks at federal dollars that'll be available. It looks at state money. It looks at the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, local funds from the local governments, and it also looks at potential private development. So as part of a land use development, would there be investment in building a new road or providing sidewalks? So it's aims to be pretty comprehensive. When we did the 2045 plan, we were starting with about $20 billion across the 25 years that we were looking at. That sounds like a huge number, but it quickly decreases. So over half of that money, or about half of that money, goes just to operating and maintaining the existing system. So that's making sure that the buses are replaced, making sure that the roads are repaved, kind of the basics of keeping things running. After that, what we do is last time we split the money between projects that are more local in character. So a sidewalk in one block in a particular neighborhood isn't particularly regional in scale. It's an important investment. It helps people get where they're going, but it's not the type of project that at the regional level we can do a lot to advance. Our focus is really more on the big projects like BRT that's serving multiple jurisdictions, or the big highway projects that you hear about where we're building a new interchange, or the Fall Line Trail where we're building a new bike trail from Ashland to Petersburg, things that are multi-jurisdictional, really adding capacity or improving where people can get throughout the region. So because of that, we put aside money for all of those smaller types of projects that we also think will need to happen over the next 20 years. So last time, I think we had about $5 billion left by the time it was all said and done that we were planning for the 25-year period. In terms of how it was split, and this is something I think there's a lot of room for input on through our stakeholders and through the public over this next time, is how do we split it? Last time what we did was we put all the projects together and tried to compare them just based on the benefit overall, which actually led to the North-South BRT being the #1 project with the most benefit for the entire region. So that's part of how that project was prioritized. But in terms of setting 20% for transit or 10% for bikes or any of that, we didn't do that last time. That's something we could consider, but it's just not part of how we approached it.
Is there a consideration of land use policy, especially in the counties, to make alternative to cars and highways more feasible? And this comes from Jason.
Sure. That's a great question, Jason. I think that's one of the biggest challenges of this process. So at the regional scale, we have a mandate to plan for the transportation network. On the other hand, we have absolutely no authority to dictate how land use works in the region. So we have a cool new tool.
Advocates, huh?
Yes, so I think that's working with the localities is the best path forward, but we do plan for it. And there are other MPOs, other large regional planning bodies do have similar efforts. One of the cool new things that we've worked on this time, which will be built into our planning process, is what we call pathways to the future. So this is what's called a scenario planning process, where we actually developed what land use could look like in a bunch of different futures, because we actually don't know. If we just plan for business as usual, that doesn't account for anything that changes. So we've actually got a plan that lays out an option of if there was another pandemic and everyone was fleeing Richmond and everything was terrible. And we also have one where everyone was built in transit-oriented developments and everybody's moved to be around transit on the major roadways, and BRT serves everywhere. So we have a variety of futures that we can look at now. So that's what we're trying to incorporate into our planning. So we're a little more comprehensive and holistic in how we're looking at it, because we actually don't know exactly how things are going to develop. But the short answer is go talk to your local governments and see if we can get things changed.
Yeah. And do you consider light rail at all as a solution? And this comes from Alice.
So light rail has historically been considered in the region, and the original thought was along Broad Street where we have the Pulse now. So in a lot of ways, the way we're viewing BRT is the precursor potentially to light rail down the road. So the bus investment is less expensive, but the infrastructure other than the rail is basically the same, the platforms. So there's the option down the road if needed to convert. But I think right now our focus is on bus rapid transit.
Yeah. And then, I get this question a lot too. When we look at the dedicated lanes already mapped out, it can in the future bring on light rail. So BRT is the precursor to that, I think. And so this comes from Colin. Let's see, are there any specific plans for increasing, oh, I lost it. Increased marketing around non-car transit in the Richmond area? For years later, I still talk to people who don't know that GRTC is fare free and the signage is lacking in general. Not only do we need better service, but we need dignified and frankly cool, exciting public transit increase. What, Colin, who are you? Let's talk after. This is exactly what we advocate for. You get it, obviously. So can you help Colin out with that question?
Sure. So, that's not really something that we're specifically focused on. I think Ride Finders is probably the closest agency that we have to that. So if you don't know Ride Finders, they're really focused on promoting carpooling, van pooling, and transit as an option rather than driving. So their focus is moving people out of your single occupancy car onto other ways of getting to and from your job. So they're probably and they're part of GRTC. So they're probably the best people to talk to about getting the message out. But otherwise, I think it's we can talk to GRTC and pass this along. Definitely share that.
Is there a transportation plan for the Diamond District? Do you know of any? And it feels like a great location for a Richmond regional bus station and broader regional bus station. So
I don't know, and Holly, I don't know if you know that off the top of your head either, but
I don't know the answer to that other than there's, the news about it. Greyhound leaving, right? So Greyhound is leaving that Diamond District bus, but I just saw that the DRPT, the Department of Rail and Public Transit, has a public input survey that's open right now. I have not looked at what it is, but that might be an opportunity to talk to them about regional rail, especially.
this could be something in Richmond Connect's plan as well. But that's something definitely to advocate to your local leaders about, making sure that in that plan for the Diamond District, that there is service provided. I'm sure there is. I can't say that there is. I can't imagine they wouldn't, but we need to make sure, we need to be on top of that. All right, let's see if we have any more questions. Michael says, is car free transportation to areas outside? Oh, I just got a link. I lost it. Outside the regions you showed in the map, within your scope of planning, and specifically, I think he's curious about connections to Hampton Roads and potential Amtrak expansion.
Sure. So we do coordinate with Hampton Roads. So short answer is rail is sort of beyond us. The state really handles all of the rail planning through the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. So they're really coordinating all of the passenger rail between somewhere like Hampton Roads and Richmond or up to DC. But we do work with Hampton Roads to ensure consistency and try and plan things out. So as an example for that, the Capitol Trail, the bike trail on Route 5 is in both our region and in the Hampton Roads region. So that was a coordinated effort between the two to provide an alternative to moving around. Now that's a little more recreational in character, but it is definitely something that we coordinate back and forth. And I know actually Hampton Roads just wrapped up a passenger rail study about enhancing the service to be able to get down there and out of Hampton Roads.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing. It looks like I don't see any more questions. This question is for Holly. I just wanted to just maybe know some of your detailed ideas about how to engage the public moving forward.
Oh gosh, that is a great question. I mean, Myles essentially alluded to the things that I care about, and what we care about it as the agency is we want to know who we should know, right? I want to know the groups we should meet, especially the groups who don't always have their voices heard, right? We should be connected to them. And then we need your help in kind of sharing those ideas. I am a creative, weird person, and I love opportunities to make public engagement more interesting outside of just a survey, right? When we're a region this large, we have to use some of the available quick tools to get to the most people. But if anybody on this call has a weird or interesting or unique idea for the way that we could get people to care or get their input in places they're either already hanging out, or creative ways to collect information other than just typing into a survey, I want to know about it. So email me, put it in the chat, let's talk. I am excited about our online engagement portal. So we're building that right now. And hopefully that will be a little bit easier and more creative way to engage with this kind of thing. I'm also just want to name that we are over surveyed as a human, right? There are so many surveys and questionnaires and public input periods. DRPT has one, and it is important, meaning the people do want to hear about it, and it can feel tiring as an individual human to answer all of those things. So I don't know that I have a solution other than to let you know that we are all mostly talking to each other, right? We are trying to be this regional coordination, but each industry and each kind of institution sometimes needs its own information, which is why we have so many of these surveys. If you all have creative thoughts, I want to hear it. We have not built what our entire engagement plan looks like for this long range plan yet, because it's still in progress. So I don't have any very specific things to ask of you today, which is also something I'm working on. I would really like it for us to have some sort of fun and creative way for us to hear voices all the time. I think RVA Rapid Transit is doing that really well by hearing the riders' voices. So I think if you're passionate about this and you care about it, talk to us. Let's be in touch. Let's keep the conversation going.
Well, can you, while we're on that note, can you give folks ways on how they can follow this process through your website, through your information? If y'all can please provide that. Because this is a 2-year process, and so we want to help people follow up on this.
Yeah.
YouTube.
The online portal will be the primary way. So right now it doesn't exist on the site. It's a separate site that we're embedding within it. And so there will be a way that you can choose which things you're interested in and follow them and get updates. We do have a newsletter. I know that also everybody is newslettered out, but if you're very nerdy and care about this, you can follow our newsletter. I'll put that in the chat in a second. Another way to help is we've got essentially like an activity in a box. So if there's a group that you're already a part of, and once we have specific things we want to ask, I would love to be able to say, here's everything you need to take this to your people and get their input and give it back to us so that we can get our reach out a little bit more.
And definitely RVA Rapid Transit is committed to helping with that process. We engage bus riders consistently weekly at bus stops. And so we will be more than happy to, when the site and the survey, any way that we can help make sure that the entire region, but also the folks who are most impacted by plans are a part of that process. Well, I just want to say, Myles and Holly, thank you so much for joining us today. I really look forward to partnering with you guys on this project over the next 2 years. And thank you for the work that you do in joining us today.
Thank you, Kate. We're happy to be here.
All right, so so that was awesome. So before we close out, I want to give everyone some upcoming events and things that we have planned for RVA Rapid Transit. Let's see, our next transit talk will be May 23rd. We're inviting Matthew Slats to join us. He is the new senior civic innovation manager. And so he's going to be talking about the people's budget and participatory budgeting. And so what would you do with $3 million? If you had the ability to tell the city of Richmond how to spend $3 million, how would you do it? And so there has been a process and some ways where the public can now participate in telling the city of Richmond how to spend that money. And so he's going to tell us about this new program and ways that you can get involved in participating in that. And so the link is in the bio. You can also visit the RVA Rapid Transit's website and click events, but you can also visit the RVA Rapid Transit's website at Eventbrite as well. Mobility University. So if you are Colin, I invite you. You had some excellent points. If you want to learn more ways of how you can get involved, we had some people talk about land use. How can we make sure that land use is considered in these transportation policies and planning? And so we have a 5-week training program called Mobility University. It takes place every spring and every fall. We have this will be our 4th cohort where we graduate individuals who learn some of these topics. So the history of transportation in Richmond, we talk about the current state of transit in Richmond, transit governance, where does funding come from? How is funding made? We also talked about, we have this 2040 vision plan, and Myles mentioned $5 billion to, like, where does that money come from? Who do we need to ask for that money? Who do we need to push for that money? How to write a public comment, how to tell your story. We also talk about walking and biking because before you get on a bus, you have to walk to that bus stop. And a lot of times your bus doesn't always drop you off in front of your destination. You may need to walk and you may need to ride your bike. And so we're going to talk about how those walking and biking and taking the bus all coincide and how you can be an advocate on all 3. And then again, participatory budgeting. So everything you've learned, how can you put that into practice? And so again, this is our last week for enrollment. So if you want to participate, I think our team is putting that link in the chat right now. And you can also visit our website, rvarapidtransit.org. And you can register for next fall. So if you're not interested in this May, you can't do it. We do it every May and every September. All right, and then save the date. This is our biggest event of the year. If you're on this call, I invite you to come. Again, I mentioned that our organization took the 2040 vision plan for this region, and we pressed upon leaders, hey, this is all what we agreed upon. We agreed upon 13 corridors by 2040, having 10 to 15-minute bus service. This is where we are. This is the money we need. This is the rider impact on it. And if you have questions about zero fare, you're thinking, hey, I don't think zero fare is a great idea, come to this event. We want to give you information. We want to give you status. We want to give you impact on how zero fare is impacting the region and why it makes sense. And so we will have, if you also join our newsletter, we'll drop a link for our newsletter. We will give you, you'll have access to it, a direct invite, but make sure you mark your calendars because that's coming. Last but not least, take action, ride the bus. When you support transit, you put a demand on the region that is necessary and needed. Also, for the state of Virginia, the transportation dollars are also based on ridership. And so by you riding the bus, it brings more dollars to our region. Become a adopter. We have a wonderful program where we're encouraging citizens to adopt bus stops. And so this allows them to clean a stop for about 1 year, but this also adds to our advocacy when we want dignified places to wait. And then we want you to share your story. If you have a experience, whether it's complimentary or constructive when using public transportation, we want to hear it. And then you can call a number 804-286-0007 right now and just leave a voice message. And you heard Stephanie play some of those comments. And so we would love to share your story at our next transit talk, or place it in news articles or things that we use to advocate on behalf of you. And then last but not least, donate. Donations help us do this work. We are a private nonprofit. I'm sorry, we are a public nonprofit, and we depend on private donations. And so without the support from people like you or organizations like you, we can't continue to do this work. So we just ask you to be a donor. You can consider to be a monthly donor. If you found value in this event today, we just invite you to give. And thank you so much. I hope you come back again and join us. And thank you again, Holly and Myles, for joining us. We will see you next month, May 16th, at our next transit talk. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.